Mayor Watt. That's my site. I'm the mayor of ohmTown.com and the host of the ohmTown Daily News Show, where I go over about 20 articles each day, 6 p.m. Eastern. All of this news is aggregated into 6 categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. I'm still pondering if I'm going to change those names. A couple of them I'm trying to rename, maybe a little bit. And within those 6 categories are 50 shows. Right now they are treated like channels for further drilling down what the news is. So for instance, if you look at the screen, if you're watching it on Twitch right now or on YouTube later, it says how twin TikTok sensations Altego turned viral fame into top 40. That actually gets thrown into a continuity report. The continuity report is a channel about movies, TV shows, and really just entertainment on the visual persuasion, so that we can watch it together and then comment. Obviously, it's mostly opinion, but I hope to bring a show that focuses on that. Maybe we can have watch parties on Twitch or elsewhere if everybody kind of works together to stream it at the same time. At any rate, 50 shows. I hope to start bringing more of them in the coming weeks. It really depends on how much free time I get. But the more I can do here on Twitch, obviously the more shows I can bring. So without much further ado, let's get into today's show of articles. The very first article is here in the continuity report, and it's about everything everywhere all at once. And I'm just gonna click over to the source of this, and that's rogerebert.com. Its article is written by Maria E. Gates, and if you've never seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, let's just I'll read a little snippet of this. And the intent here, like I say in most of my episodes, is to give you a little idea of this article, and then I want you to go over and read the rest of this article. I won't go through the entire thing. I won't show you all of the graphics that are on the page. I won't read every line of text, but I'll give you an idea of it. But here it says, a few things in life are certain besides death, taxes, maybe the never-ending task that is doing laundry. At least that's where the characters in writers/directors Danielle Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, collectively known as Daniels, new film Everything Everywhere All at Once, find themselves initially. That is, until they take an emotional, philosophical, and deeply weird trip through the looking glass into the multiverse and discover metaphysical wisdom along the way. And so it starts out that Michelle Yeoh gives a performance as Evelyn Wang, a weary owner of a laundromat under IRS audit. And I've been hearing a few good things about this. I haven't seen it, and I'll probably end up watching this. Again, I do a lot of things throughout the day, but I would love to be able to watch this. Most of the action is set in an IRS office in Simi Valley, where Evelyn must battle IRS agent Deirdre, who is played by Jamie Lee Curtis, a troop of security guards, and possibly everyone else she's ever met. So it doesn't come across as being something, it doesn't sound like something that you would like go out of your way to watch, but I've been hearing good things about it. It says, just as Evelyn taps into Yeoh's iconography, facets of Waymond can be found throughout Kwan's unique career. The comic timing from his childhood roles as Data in The Goonies and Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom echoes in Evelyn's nebbish husband. And that's where I recognize him from, are those two movies. So go and check it out. It's over at rogerebert.com, and it's everything, everywhere, all at once. And that's actually something that I say around the house, that you can't do everything all the time. And it's very interesting that there's a title for a movie. So go check it out. The next article is about a watch, and it's in the Band DeBezel channel. They have a section here called Happenings. Brace yourself for Watches and Wonders 2022, featuring new releases from Rolex, Cartier, Patek, and many, many more. Watch collectors, the wait is over. Next week, you and we, that's the authors of the article, not me, we'll see a grand unveiling of new pieces from, and then they list just a ton of manufacturers. I would refer to them mostly as artists, engineers. It's more than just manufacturing of, chunks of metal and glass. Each one, it's hard to explain when you are fascinated by pieces of engineering like a watch. But each one is unique, kind of like DNA. Let me go over to Hodinkee. So Hodinkee.com is the site. They always have spectacular photography. This is an article written by Jack Forster. And they're just kind of, I'm kind of teasing you into going over to Hodinkee.com, and maybe you'll want to go and see this. From March 30th to April 5th, there is a thing called Watches and Wonders 2022. And let's go down a little bit. They're going to have all kinds of makers of watches and other materials, accessories. And it's basically a big trade show. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. If you're watching, I'm sorry if it makes you dizzy. I try to avoid that, but so let's see. Yeah, you're going to have to go to Geneva. So it's over in Geneva. So if you can, feel free to go. Let's see. I'm going to see how much sorry for the dead air. 1 second, really sorry. I didn't look up anything about this. I'm trying to find the price. Well, I can't find the price. I can't find the price fast, so sorry about that. Let's go on to the next article. The next article is in the Word in Tech. Microsoft is tied to hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign bribes. A whistleblower is alleging, quote, "It's going on at all levels," says former employee. "All the executives are aware of it." So let's click this link. It takes us over to The Verge. It's an article written by Russell Brandom, Brandom. And it says in 2016, Yasser Elabd noticed a $40,000 payment to a client in Africa that didn't smell right. The payment came from Microsoft's business investment fund, money meant for closing deals and opening up new lines of business. But the customer named in the request wasn't a customer at all, at least not according to the internal client list. He was a former Microsoft employee who had been terminated for poor performance and he left the company so recently that its rules would have barred him from approval. And then apparently it continued. And the article continues to say, in the 2 years that followed, Elab says he did everything in his power to stamp out these quiet bribes, a fight that made him a pariah among his colleagues and eventually cost him his job. Yeah, I'm sure it, not everybody, for whatever reason, looks down at bribes. They think that it's part and parcel to the business enterprise. And by no means is that something that is something that takes place, quote unquote, within the rank and file. It goes from the top all the way to the bottom. Whatever I mean by the bottom, because after the C-suite, pretty much everybody is the same. It's harder to fire somebody in the C-suite because there's usually contracts of golden parachutes. But everybody outside of the C-suite, they can be fired pretty quickly. And when we have a culture globally, it seems, of telling employees that they're nothing, and employees saying, well, if you're going to fire me at any given time, I might as well extract whatever I can. There's no loyalty between any aspect of business. So if bribes are what it takes, people feel right in doing it. But, when you go to business school and ethics is the shortest, smallest chapter within a class, makes you wonder what's really important. Well, I can answer that because people will tell you the only thing that matters is profits. A dismal, sociopathic perspective. But let's continue on. Now, there's somebody that's blowing the whistle about bribery within Microsoft. Now, this next article is once again about Putin and the war between. There's no war between. It's an invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And so the reason why I found that, or the reason why I clicked on this, isn't because necessarily of this article, but because of what JK Rowling said. So JK Rowling responded in Twitter to Vladimir Putin saying that Russia is being canceled just like JK Rowling. How anybody can connect the two together is beyond my understanding. But yes, that's apparently what happened. And it says, regardless of, and this article snippet says, regardless of whether or not cancel culture is real, it's certainly a useful political tool, useful enough, it seems, for a head of state like Vladimir Putin to wield it as a tool in an international geopolitical conflict. In an address to the Russian public, Putin said that the country of Russia is being, and its culture is being canceled by Western forces, which are removing them from history and disparaging their cultural works. In short, he said, Russia is being treated the same way as Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling. Never in my lifetime would I ever think that somebody would try and equate invading Ukraine and having a social uprising about it being compared to a book series and an author who has a different take on what amounts to gender. And I understand that there are issues with J.K. Rowling, but J.K. Rowling isn't invading another country and feeling the repercussions of it. No, she has a bad take on things. And or I should say, she has a different take on things where many people don't agree with it. And the context can sometimes be viewed differently. And maybe there's some wiggle room for JK Rowling to come back from that. But again, I'll just reiterate that she's not invading a country for zero rationale. You know, we know about the Donbas region and stuff like that, but it's being taken care of. It was being taken care of. It was being monitored. It was being addressed by Ukraine. But in no way are the two together. So I'm not sure why I'm lingering on this, but let's go over to the article. This is an article by Vice.com, written by Geeta Jackson. And they have sections within Vice.com. This one is Motherboard Tech by Vice. I wish that it was named something even remotely approachable. But anyway, this is what it is. And naturally has Putin sitting at a table staring at a camera. And it always looks fuzzy for some reason. It doesn't look sharp. It doesn't look like, you know, your average Twitch streamer camera. You know, purchase a C920 and record it and post it on YouTube. Oh, you're shutting down the internet and doing tit for tat kind of responses to society saying what you're doing is wrong. Oh, I get it. Well, sorry about that, but not sorry. It says, in an address to Russian public, Putin said that the country of Russia and its culture are being canceled by Western forces. And that's just not true. He's being canceled for his policy. And then JK Rowling responded. So, but go over and you can read more over at Vice.com. Obviously, click the link and you'll see more. Let's continue on. This is a little more focused over in the States, although it has some ecological disaster ramifications. There is a fuel depot in Hawaii called Red Hill. And this here is titled Navy Decisions on Red Hill Jet Fuel Tanks, Very Costly to Military Families, Taxpayers, and Hawaii's Environment. The snippet is $1.1 billion and counting for U.S. Navy's obstinance in shutting down dangerous leaking Red Hill jet fuel tanks in Honolulu. We'll click that link and take us over to Common Dreams. And this is an article for commondreams.org written by Ann Wright. And so recently they said that they were going, they being the U.S. government, said that they were going to shut down the Red Hill fuel tank depot and start cleaning it up. It's basically going to end up being a Superfund site, which is going to cost 1.1. It says here, total funding for all aspects of Red Hill in the current fiscal year alone come to $1.1 billion. But billions more will be required to complete all aspects of the cleanup, stabilization, defueling, and closing of Red Hill and the relocation of its fuel and build fuel storage capacity elsewhere. Basically, it's just old and not maintainable. It's in an untenable position. It's going to fail and continue to get worse. And the technology between when it was created and currently has changed dramatically. So, time to upgrade. And like everything else that upgrades, you got to upgrade this tech too. The majority of Red Hill funding includes $686 million for continued support to displaced service members, civilians, and their families. And that's just a high cost of living in Hawaii. Thousands of military families were housed in Waikiki hotels for up to 3 months and were provided temporary living allowances for food and other services. That's just the nature of the beast when something catastrophic is happening. So just get it done. It's the nature of the beast and you can't ignore it. Otherwise, Hawaii is going to become a horrible ecological disaster. So get it done. And no complaining, just get it done. You can talk about the ramifications of the past decisions later and just get this done now. So let's go on to the next article. This is Pachinko, adapted from the novel by Min Jin Lee, creator Sue Hughes. Apple TV Plus Pachinko is an emotional, expressive retracing through history that honors how Koreans were affected by Japanese colonization of Korea in the 20th century. And there is a messy historical, a messy history there. Without getting too into it, it was very messy. So there's a review over at RogerEbert.com by Nick Allen. And they go into greater detail about what this is. Told across 8 episodes, many of them an hour long and boasting major care from production. It is an impressive, grandiose work with one major caveat. It's one of those adaptations that make you want to read the book because certain pieces to the plotting seem to be missing. But for most people, watching a show is easier to digest than a book, depending on how fast you can read a book. But you lose a lot of the subtle nuance of a book when you just watch the show. But it allows you to, if you do both, it allows you to read the book faster, so to speak, because you've gained some knowledge of what's going on in the book. So be sure to watch this. If you like history or want to be aware of this interaction between two cultures, Korean and Japanese, again. So let's go on to the next article. The next article is in the Warcrafters channel, and it's Konami's crime site is anime Sherlock meets Clue and looks kind of great, according to this reviewer. Konami's crime site got a new trailer and a release date at yesterday's Future Games Show Spring Showcase, and it looks like Sherlock Holmes plus anime demons plus Clue, or Cluedo for the Brits, according to this writer, may be a winning combination. An isometric murder mystery that pits up to 4 players against one another. Crime Site is all about either saving the murder target or teaming up to make sure the dirty deed is done. That sounds at first blush. Again, I don't read this stuff before I come on air. I may already know something about it, which allows me to give a little bit more context to it. But I don't read the article beforehand, and I definitely don't click this link. And so this is an article over at PCGamer.com, and it's written by Rich Stanton. It says, "You see, but you do not observe." They've got a video on the site over at PC Gamer, this article. But I won't play it. I want you to go over there and you check it all out, and then you can come back and talk with me. But it kind of, to me, it seems like it would be similar to Among Us. So, but it's higher resolution, but with 4 people playing the game, it seems like it could be kind of a different take on kind of Among Us, because you can have co-conspirators in Among Us. But obviously the graphics, the game, the interface, everything about it is different, but it looks like you can kind of work together to make sure that somebody is deleted or try and save the murder victim. Interesting. So it's going to be released April 14th. But I don't think it says where it's going to be released to. Sorry, I'm scrolling back and forth. I'm really sorry if you are watching this. Yeah, I don't see where it's going to be released to. Let me scroll down again one more time just to see. Yeah, I'm not sure. Just early access tests. It says Konami is also holding some early access tests, so maybe it's going to be on Steam. I don't see Steam in this article, so we'll have to watch this and see if it pops back up in the news. Let's go on to the next article. The next article is largest built all at once wind farm opens in Oklahoma and saves customers $1 billion. You have to do the pinky thing. $1 billion. Even in a gas and oil state, customers are saving $1 billion by switching to wind. That is the future, my friend. And this is a commondreams.org article written by Juan Cole. And to some degree, I agree that renewable energy sources like wind, like solar, like geothermal and hydro, they are the future if you want to get away from oil and gas. Makes sense, right? And I think that's what society needs to do. The problem that I see is, for instance, although it's hard for me to throw this context at a current conflict because the rules are different for each conflict. So Russia invades Ukraine, but if Ukraine had nothing but geothermal, solar, wind, hydro power, they're harder to defend those, particularly with the weaponry that was being or is being used within Ukraine, like cluster bombs. So it's harder to defend a solar panel than it is to defend oil tanks. Notwithstanding, a massive bomb being dropped, but you can bury tanks and defend and put them in strategic bunkers so that it's more difficult to stop them. But you cannot do that with solar, and you cannot do that with wind, and you can't do that with hydro, and you can't do that with geothermal. All you have to do is drop something near a geothermal plant and it can dishevel the pipes that are used in the plant because they drill down into the hot further down so that the heat from the earth causes a shift between cold and hot. Anyway, my point being that it's harder to defend, and that is the one thing that I have a problem with when we talk about shifting away from something as strategic as oil. That said, if everybody's forced to get away from oil because oil is no longer cost effective for throwing into gas tanks, we're all on the same playing field, and you can't have some authoritarian start firing missiles at somebody because they're in the same boat. Unfortunately, there's lunatics everywhere, but let's continue on. Good for Oklahoma. Now let's expand it. every state should be doing it. So this next article is Nvidia shows off AI model. Whoa. AI model that turns a few dozen snapshots into a 3D rendered scene. Nvidia's latest AI demo is pretty impressive, a tool that quickly turns a few dozen 2D snapshots into a 3D rendered scene. In the video that you'll see when we go over to the source, you can see the method in action with a model dressed like Andy Warhol holding an old-fashioned Polaroid camera. Apparently it's a PR thing. Anyway, the tool is called Instant NERF, referring to neural radiance fields, a technique developed by researchers from UC Berkeley, Google Research, and UC San Diego in 2020. And if you want a more detailed explainer, you're going to have to go over to this site. But let's click on over to the site. And this is over at The Verge. It's written by James Vincent. And basically just as a person, and it appears that kind of like photogrammetry, I suppose, but better stitching, a different way of stitching because it's just 2D photographs. It isn't actually scanned. But it certainly looks like it's scanned. It's pretty neat. Nvidia Instant NERF. I want to say NERF, but that's a trademark violation. No, I know how trademarks work, just in case you're about to send me an email. So let's see what else is in here. Researchers have been improving this sort of 2D to 3D model for a couple of years now, adding more detail to finished renders and increasing rendering speed. Nvidia says its new Instant NERF model is one of the fastest yet developed and reduces rendering time from a few minutes to a process that is finished almost instantly. Pretty cool stuff, man. I love this. Basically because you can go into any location and take pictures and it will be able to render them based on what I'm reading. And what I'm anticipating is the full capability of this thing. So forensically, you can go into a scene and take pictures from different angles and see quite a bit of detail that you can discuss after the fact. Pretty cool, pretty cool. So let's continue on to the next article. The next article is in the Word and Tech channel. Podcast app Overcast is getting a big design overhaul. Overcast is a popular podcast player for Apple devices, and it's getting an update that brings a major design overhaul to its main screen, as well as a new theming system that lets you pick the colors used throughout the app. For Overcast users like this author, the update is a fresh coat of paint to a well-made app. The power users will likely find plenty of new tweaks and settings that they can use to make the app work even better for their use case. And I've always heard good things about Overcast, and I've used it before and then I stopped. For me, I've integrated everything that I would need into ohmTown, so I don't use any other apps. That said, this article is over at theverge.com. It's written by Mitchell Clark and kind of highlights the podcast app Overcast. And that little snippet kind of sums it up, but you'll want to go over to The Verge and read the entirety of the article if you want some greater detail and minutia. Obviously, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them if you throw them in chat, if you're in my chat, or come and talk to me. Let's continue on. The next article is Ginny Thomas is a total QAnon fangirl, she revealed in text to Mark Meadows. And a little bit of politics in today's news. Ginny Thomas, a long-term conservative activist and wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, is deep down the QAnon rabbit hole. She pushed core claims of the conspiracy theory community to then-President Donald Trump's Chief of Staff Mark Meadows ahead of the January 6th Capitol riot, pushing him to overturn Trump's election loss by any means necessary. And these are texts that were reported by the Washington Post, include multiple references that could only have been made by someone deeply steeped in QAnon's lore. So let's click this link. It takes us over to vice.com. And yeah, there have been some podcasts that have talked about Ginny Thomas, and you should go and read them. This is an article for vice.com written by Cameron Joseph. And yeah, I I can't go into it here in the stream. Really, it's an hour-long show, and it's well, for fear of Senator Graham jumping into my stream and crying about us misjudging Ginny Thomas's faith. You should go and read up if you are in the United States or you're curious about U.S. politics and you're elsewhere. Yeah, there's some interesting context to any that these claims are making, and they're being made by other news organizations that are doing primary research, having fundamental data, not just making it up out of the blue. It says these texts are a word salad of QAnon terminology. QAnon adherents falsely believe that Trump had watermarked mail-in ballots to track potential fraud. The phrase "watch the water" was popular in QAnon message boards. The reference is to QFS is in the video refers to a quantum blockchain watermark conspiracy that had just emerged in QAnon fever swamps that claimed that all mail-in ballots contained a secret watermark. It's just weird. It's just weird. Quote, "I hope this is true. Never heard anything like this before, or even a hint of it. Possible?" And then 3 question marks. And she texted that to Meadows. Watermarked ballots in over 12 states have been part of a huge Trump and military white hat sting operation in 12 key battleground states, Thomas continued. But none of that was true, and none of it exists. And there is no sting, and there was no systemic manipulation. In fact, there's never been any evidence of Democratic manipulation, but there certainly has been on the Republican side, according to news reports all over since the election. So without getting into it and giving more airtime for this, I'm gonna continue on, but now you know. The next article is over in the Order of the Bean channel, so it's about coffee in some way. The Capra Press immersion brewer is coming soon from Canada, and that's how maybe hot mess or eclectic array of news is the ohmTown Daily News Show. This is just a sample of what you would get if you go over to ohmTown.com. Hundreds of thousands of articles now. Just the headlines, little snippet, not the whole article, not the graphics, none of that. Just enough to get you to go over to the source site. A new Canadian company called Capra is making its plunge into the French press brewer category with the Capra Press, an immersion brewer with numerous innovations. Let's go and take a look at this thing. This is over at the dailycoffeenews.com. So maybe a spirit animal of ohmTown News. This is an article written by Howard Bryman. And the Immersion Brewer by Capra Press basically looks like a black cylinder with a nice hefty handle. Like most, I'd say all immersion blenders, you basically fill it up, put your grounds in it, let it steep, and then press a plunger down to push all of the grounds out of the water, leaving the coffee, just the liquid, not the grounds. So it says inside a vacuum insulated stainless steel 1 liter carafe. The Capra Press plunger assembly includes an impermeable layer of silicone above the steel filter's array of 300 micron holes. Interesting. So this is one of the few opaque ones that immersion brewers that I've seen. For whatever reason, every time I've seen an immersion brewer, it's glass or plastic and transparent. You can look right on through it. It's interesting that the picture that they're displaying in the article has multiple 3D printers behind it. I wonder if those are prototyping the actual device parts, or if that's just happenstance. Neat, because I do the same thing. I use 3D printers to prototype. And I can't say that it's rapid prototyping, but it's more rapid than trying to get molds made so that you can do injection molding, or countless other things, a whole lot cheaper too. So kudos to them if that's what they're using it for. Anyway, looks like a nice gadget, but I like my lattes, so it's a different beast. But you never know when you need or want an immersion brewer. It does offer up a good tasting brew. So let's go on to the next article. The next article is a giant white diamond named The Rock makes debut in Dubai. I've seen a picture of this thing before, and it's astonishing for what it is. But yeah, it is what it is. It's a diamond. A giant diamond nicknamed The Rock went on display for the first time in Dubai on Friday ahead of an auction where it's expected to fetch over $30 million. So let's click this link. It takes us over to fizz.org and has a picture of a person holding The Rock, and it's not Dwayne The Rock Johnson being held in this guy's hand. It is a massive diamond, a 228 karat pear-shaped diamond. Obviously, it's the finished product, so it was actually possibly much larger. Sometimes they can save a lot of it by cutting it the right way, but sometimes they lose a lot in the process of faceting. But this is a 228 karat pear-shaped gem, which was mined and polished in South Africa more than 20 years ago in the largest white diamond. Is the largest white diamond ever to come to auction, said Christie's. After making its debut at the auction house's Dubai branch, where it will be displayed from March 26th to 29th, The Rock will travel to Taipei, New York, and Geneva, where it will be auctioned on May 11th. So get your $30 million ready and go over to Geneva. And if you go to Geneva to do this, then swing by the watch trade show, because it'll be there too. Time to spend that Twitch money, right? Let's continue on to the next article. This is an Order of the Bean article as well. Cafe Incorporated building a $4.4 million coffee grounds refinery in Amsterdam. Dutch company Cafe Incorporated is building, I might be pronouncing it incorrectly, so if you are Dutch, let me know, is building an approximately €4 million or 4.4 million US dollar plant to create bio-based product ingredients out of used coffee grounds with financial support from Amsterdam. And this is a dailycoffeenews.com article written by Daily Coffee News staff. So no individual person is involved in this apparently. But the Amsterdam Climate and Energy Fund is assisting in supporting this effort, which is great because then we can actually use all of those coffee grounds that normally get thrown out. And if we can recycle them in an industrial way and produce something else, I did a previous segment episode earlier this month, I think it was, where researchers were using coffee to produce something related to carbon. And so if that's part of the process, it might end up being kind of a win-win for everybody. And its attempt was to reduce CO2 amounts. So maybe this is the actual physical embodiment of those scientific efforts. Maybe I can go back and find a correlation. So the next article is in the Word in Tech. Student researcher examines impact of digital arrest logs on arrestees' future. So what do you think about that? Camille Ingham, who recently graduated from Penn State Harrisburg with a master's in criminal justice, for her master's thesis, partnered with the college's Center for Survey Research to assess how the publication of digital arrest logs impacted the future success of justice-involved individuals. Justice-involved individuals? Okay. Especially arrestees across Pennsylvania, and the study included how digital punishment affects an individual's ability to find employment or housing or even maintain social involvement after an arrest. So that's kind of one of the things that happens with anybody who has gone into jail or had to deal with the ramifications of falling out with the law. If you commit a crime or something like that, it gets posted to the internet and it never disappears. In fact, it's risen to the level where people use open source intelligence gathering, recon of you, sometimes referred to as doxing, where they find information about you and then post it all over. And you, when people speak of cancel culture, it's similar in scope. But when a person is involved in the criminal justice system and they complete their penance, right? They pay their fine, they do their dues. For whatever reason, they've broken the social contract, but they've done their time. They've paid for it and they're trying to return. Sometimes it's never let go because people find it very hard to forgive. And depending on the context of the criminal activity, it's impossible to let go for some people. And this, when these digital arrest logs impact people long term, it can lead to some pretty bad outcomes. So it says the publication of digital arrest logs has the potential to affect members of every community. With the sheer number of people who are or have been involved with the criminal justice system at some point, millions of them could be subjected to their mugshots being posted online and have to deal with the detrimental social and economic effects that come with such publications. So let's scroll down here and see if there's anything that gives a result. The data showed that just 34% of the sampled 1,044 adult Pennsylvanians know about the police publishing digital arrest logs. Males reportedly slightly more knowledge, 36%, than females, 32%. And respondents with at least one child in the household were more likely, 39%, to know about digital arrest logs than those without. And those without were at 31%. So let's see. Yeah, they go into the polling methodology and whatnot. But From my experience with interacting with reputation services, it can be detrimental to a person, and it doesn't necessarily need to be criminal, but it certainly harms everybody when their picture and information that might be compromising or impugn the integrity of the person might be posted. And it requires that person to audit it to make sure that it's either legal or it could be illegal posting of material. That's in reputation sites. But when the justice system posts it, it's usually tied to criminal activity. And that can have long-term detrimental impact. So let's continue with this next article. The next article is in the Daily News Show. U.S. ready to auction wind energy rights off Carolina's coast. The federal government plans to auction off the rights to produce power from wind energy in 2 areas offshore of North Carolina and South Carolina. So get ready for lawsuits, because if anybody can see it from the horizon of their beach house, they're probably going to complain about it. Let me pause this. This is an ABC News article by the Associated Press. Pardon me one second. This is Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The federal government plans to auction off the rights to produce power from wind energy in 2 areas offshore of North Carolina and South Carolina. And the leases are part of President Joe Biden's goal of increasing clean energy generation and providing the U.S. with more independent sources of power and lowering electricity bills for customers. I would love to have, Tesla solar tiles on my roof, but it's going to cost $80,000. Yeah, that's 4 times, I think, what replacing my roof cost. And I'd still have to pay, like, the power isn't necessarily everything that I need. If I lease it, it's something like $400 a month. And if I outright buy it, it's $80,000. So one way or the other, I'm out a considerable amount of money. So I would love it if something could lower the price, give me some tax rebates or something. But throwing some generators out into the ocean and generating electricity there, people are going to end up having to pay for it, even though it's a renewable energy source consuming nothing. All we have to do is maintain it. So it should be cheaper, but it probably won't be. If fully developed, the sites could generate 1.3 gigawatts of power, or enough to power nearly 500 homes, or more than enough to send a DeLorean back in time. Or Back to the Future. That's a good name for a movie, huh? Or 3. Huh. Okay, well, the next article is over in Stock Marketeers. The housing market is in the early stages of a substantial downshift, according to an analyst. Home sales may drop 25% by the end of summer. The little snippet is really short, and the expected drop in home sales could bring relief to renters over time. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's see. This article was first published on March 21st and then updated. I'm not sure how many updates take place. They don't tell you how many, but they do state that the last update was March 25th, today. So that's why my aggregator grabbed it today. And they have an interesting picture. It looks like it's a house right off the coast of California. And I think I know this house, but it's really funny because, okay, so the author is named Jacob Passy, and it's a MarketWatch.com article. But it says the expected drop in home sales could bring relief to renters over time. And it has a house where the back deck of the house is hanging off of a cliff, about to fall into the rocky shores below. And I think it's just kind of funny. And I think that was the intent of this, but that could slip by a lot of people that just scroll through this article. So I'm going to scroll down. It says Ian Shepherdson, chief economist and founder of research consulting firm Pantheon Macroeconomics, is predicting a dramatic fall in the pace of home sales this year. In a research note, he projected that existing home sales will drop roughly 25% from the annual pace of 6.02 million set in February to a rate of 4.5 million by the end of summer. Well, that might be based on inflation, and this is about the pace at which I think inflation is going to rise to that 70s era inflation rate. If prices continue for gas to stay high or increase, if the conflict is used again, globally, the impact of what's going on between Russia and Ukraine has already been felt for a month, and people were already impacting their decision-making processes based on the buildup of Russian troops along the border of Ukraine. So there was anticipation, even though there was disbelief. It's about risk management when people are looking at global machinations like a conflict. So all of this is already built into the markets. The rest of this is profiteering by the source producers of goods, not services. Services will remain the same, except for the fact that they're impacted by products. A consultant providing a service isn't out more money because, corn is increasing in cost, except for the food that they consume. So they may go, well, if my bill has gone up $20 a month, I'm going to raise my rate $1 an hour. And that's arguably, their choice. Not arguably, that is their choice. But the problem here is that inflation is going to continue to go up. So where does all this money go? It's not going to go into buying a new house because interest rates are going up. And it's above 4%. So where is it going to end? I think it's going to continue up to about 7. Maybe even higher. We'll see. So if you didn't refi last year, you are in for a wild ride. Well, unless, if you have a variable loan, then you're going to be in for a wild ride. But go over to MarketWatch, read this article. The housing market is in early stages of a substantial downshift. Yeah, I don't really agree for the short term. Okay, so this next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. Amazon just hiked the cost of Prime membership by 16% to $139 for millions of its existing customers. The new changes start on Friday. Existing Amazon Prime customers will begin to see a new higher price as their memberships renew. The monthly rate is now $15, up from $13. So let me start that over. The monthly rate is now $14.99, up from $12.99, and the annual cost is $139, up from $119. And as far as I know, that $119 price was not too far ago. Let me see here. So, yeah, I think it was 2018, 2019. I can't verify. But anyway, so inflation is probably going to be used as the rationale for this. But let's click this link and take us over to Apple Business Insider. Dominic Reuter is the author of this article, and maybe you didn't get a response if they asked Amazon. When it launched in Prime in 2005, Amazon charged $80 per year and has since raised its price twice and increased to $99 in 2014, $119 in 2018, and now 4 years later, $139. You might as well round up. So quite a big bump, 20% bump, 16% bump. Says more recently, Amazon has come under scrutiny for its sign-up process for Prime, which some customers have said led them to feel manipulated into signing up, according to internal company documents maintained by insiders Eugene Kim. Unintended signups erode customer trust. Either way, improvements in clarity during sign-up are needed. I had read a complaint from somebody that unsubscribing was a pain as well. I'm not sure if it rose to the Comcast level of complaint, but it says Prime has more than 200 million members as of last year, making it one of the most popular subscription programs in the world. You get a lot of benefit from being a Prime member, most notably the fees associated with shipping are largely wiped out. And it really depends on how it's processed. So if you are a seller and you send everything to a Prime warehouse, then it'll be delivered from the Prime warehouse either at a reduced rate or no fee at all. It says the average Amazon customer uses the service a lot, with the typical customer making 74 delivery orders per year with just 1 or 2 items per transaction, according to the shopping analytics firm Numerator. And since the pandemic, I can see that probably ticked up quite a bit. So although I'm not happy with the increase, I'll take the increase versus having to pay shipping per item, because indeed being able to get a package delivered in a day at no cost other than the item itself is definitely a bonus for consumers. None of this helps the small marketplace owner, though. If you are a mom and pop shop locally, you still have to ship or have somebody there for pickup, both of which is an inconvenience. And so when a mega corporation has the ability to absorb those costs, it's going to price out small business every time. So this last article is over in the Jewel Crafting channel. It says, I have boxes of chain and artistic wire, and I bought these centerpieces from Michael's over a year ago. So this is an artist, Kathy Z. And it's one of these shows, one of these channels, Jewel Crafting, that I'm interested in launching to highlight other people, artists, artisans that are making jewelry and crafts. And I think it's really neat and shows off the creativity and capability of people. So let's click this link. This is an article over at jewelrymakingjournal.com. And so if you're interested in this, go on over to jewelrymakingjournal.com. And the article is written by Kathy Z. And it has pictures of some bracelets. And it looks like they've used some beads and findings and put them together in a way that some people may like. And you can probably get them, either you can make them yourself with these ideas on the site, or you can go over to Etsy and purchase them, because there are a lot of very creative people over there at Etsy. And I don't have any relationship with Etsy. I don't do anything over at Etsy. Although I think I still have a presence there. I pretty much on every site that comes along, I open up a presence there but not necessarily do something with it. It's kind of always just in a holding pattern because of what I do for my business. But at any rate, that is the end of today's show. But there was something. I don't quite remember it right now. Maybe I'll have to come back and revisit this. I'll have to think about it. Anyway, if you are in my chat, please follow on Twitch. I want to get that goal to 100. We're about halfway there right now. What is the goal? It's 50 followers. It's not that many. But again, I'm doing this an hour a day. And then I converted into a YouTube episode and a podcast. So if you do a search for ohmTown, you'll find me at YouTube. You'll find me on Apple Podcasts. And it is the day's show posted there. I might post it tonight. Might be tomorrow morning. It depends on how fast I can get to it. But every time you go over to ohmTown.com and you click on that logo, it'll refresh and give you another set of headlines. And I hope that you enjoy the show. I hope you get something out of it. And I definitely hope that it drives you over to ohmTown and then through ohmTown over to the various sources so that you can read the rest of the articles. And then come back and chat with me about it, because there's a lot of news out there. And without some type of moderation, curating, it's just information overload. And maybe you might feel like backing away from consuming all of this, but you'll miss out on some interesting news and definitely some good conversation. So come on back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, and we will have another chat. Sound good? Thanks for coming. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.